Hmm. One of the lessons nobody warns you about when you become a project manager is the part of growth that has nothing to do with schedules, budget, risk, issues, or even status report. It has everything to do with emotional intelligence. Most project managers enter the profession believing that if they work hard enough, communicate clear enough, and deliver successful outcome, people will naturally recognize their value. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. See, family, I've worked on projects that finished on time, within budget, within scope, and delivered exactly what was promised. Leadership was happy. Stakeholders were happy. The project achieved the intended outcome. By every measurable standard, the project was successful. Yet there were moments when I felt like it wasn't good enough. Why, you ask? Because sometimes you're being measured against expectations that were never communicated, expectations that no one can define, expectations that no one can provide evidence for, expectations that only exist in someone's mind. And here is where it gets difficult. Sometimes the people judging your performance aren't the people carrying the responsibility for the outcome. They see the pieces of the project. You see the entire project. They see a meeting. You see the months of preparation behind the meeting. They see a decision. You see the trade-offs, the risks, the stakeholder conversation, and consequences attached to those decisions. Early in my career, I fought those situations. I wanted people to understand the work. I wanted people to see the value. I wanted people, well, actually, I just wanted everyone to recognize what was happening behind the scene. But the harder I fought for validation, the more frustrated I became. The more energy I spent trying to convince people, the less energy I had available to lead. Then one day I learned a lesson that changed my perspective. Not every closed door is meant to be reopened. Not every critic needs to become a supporter. Not every person will understand your role. And not every successful project will earn a universal praise. Sometimes leadership means accepting that you've done your job well, even when everyone else doesn't acknowledge it. Because the moment you stop chasing validation is often the moment you become free to focus on what matters, serving the project, serving the team, and continuing to move forward. Principle number one, don't mistake a temporary assignment for a permanent destination. One of the easiest mistakes we make in our careers is assuming that because something exists today, it will exist tomorrow. I learned this lesson the hard way as well because there was a season where I viewed a role as a vehicle. It was helping me provide for my family while building something bigger on the side. Then somewhere along the way, my perspective shifted. I started imagining a future that may never have been part of the original plan. And that's where many of us get hurt. We stop seeing opportunities as assignments and start seeing them as guarantees. The project ends, organization changes, leadership changes, funding changes, priority changes. Nothing about project management is permanent. Neither are many of the opportunities attached to it. Here's the lesson I want you to think about. How many opportunities have you treated like permanent destinations when they were only meant to prepare you for the next chapter? Sometimes what hurts in the ending is realizing we built a future around something that was never guaranteed to stay. Here's two actionable tips I'd love for you to experiment with. Treat every opportunity as preparation, not performance. Next one, focus on extracting lessons and growth from every season instead of assuming every season will last forever. Here's my professional advice, family. The strongest project managers appreciate where they are without becoming dependent on it. And once you accept that some opportunities were never meant to last forever, another question naturally flows. What do you do when the door actually closed? Because understanding why it happened is one thing. Moving forward after it happens is something entirely different. Principle number two, take ownership of what happens next. Let's clarify something, family. Taking ownership does not mean taking blame. Those are not the same thing. There will be moments in your career where decisions are made that you disagree with. There will be situations where you don't get the outcome you wanted. There will be moments where the facts don't seem to support the ending conclusion. That's life, family. But here's what I've learned. The moment you allow another person's decision to determine your future, you give them more power than they were ever supposed to have. You may not control the door closing, but you absolutely control what happens after it closes. And that's where leadership begins, not when everything is working. Again, not when everything is working, not when everything is fair, But when you decide that your future will not be defined by someone else's decision, here's the lessons I want you to think about. Because the moment you allow another person's decision to define your future, you've given them the authority they were never supposed to have. The door may close, but your ability to respond is still yours. Here's 2 actionable tips I'd love for you to experiment with. Separate responsibility from response. Next one, build a next step plan before spending weeks replaying the past. Here's my professional advice, family. You may not control who closes the door, but you always control whether you remain standing in front of it. And now, even when we take ownership, there's still one final challenge. Because if you've ever experienced disappointment, rejection, or loss, then you already know what happens next. Your emotions show up, and sometimes they show up really loud. Principle number 3, trust facts before feelings. One of the hardest things about leadership is that emotions often arrive before perspective. The moment something doesn't go according to plan, our minds start creating stories. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'll never recover. Maybe this setback has already defined me. Maybe everybody sees me differently now. The problem is that emotions can be real without being accurate. As project managers, we were taught to gather evidence before making a decision. Yet when it comes to our own life, many of us abandon the discipline the moment adversity shows up. Instead of evaluating the facts, we start believing the feelings. One company made a decision, one project ended, one opportunity disappeared. Those are the facts. But that doesn't automatically mean your future disappeared with it. Here's a lesson I want you to think about. The facts may say a chapter ended. Your emotions may say your story ended. Those are not the same thing. One is evidence, the other is interpretation. Here's 2 actionable tips I'd love for you to experiment with. Write down the facts before drawing conclusions about your future. Next one, give yourself time before making decisions during emotional seasons. Here's my professional advice, family. Confidence is not believing everything will work out. Confidence is trusting yourself to figure it out, even if it doesn't. And when you put all these 3 principles together, something interesting begins to happen. Instead, you start seeing them for what they really are, a transition, an invitation to become someone stronger than you were before. Here's the final reflection. Maybe the real reason some doors close is not to punish us, not to embarrass us, not even to stop us. Maybe some doors close because we've already learned everything that they were meant to teach us. The challenge is that many of us spend so much time trying to reopen yesterday's door that we never notice the opportunity standing right in front of us today. So as you prepare for another week, I want you to think about these questions. What door are you still trying to open? Is it a job, a title, a project, a missed opportunity, a version of yourself that no longer exists? Because the longer you stand in front of that closed door demanding that it open, the less time you spend walking towards the next one. As we come to a close here, family, the door closing is rarely the hardest part. The hardest part is having the confidence to believe you can open another door. It's wondering if you'll find another opportunity. It's wondering if you'll have to start over. It's wondering if the next door might close too. And I understand that feeling so deeply. If I could tell you how many doors have closed on me throughout my life and career, you'll probably be surprised. And if I'm being transparent, every single time it happened, there was a period where I questioned what's next, but something else happened too. Every time I made it through that transition, I found myself looking back and saying the same thing. Thank God that door closed. Because if it hadn't, I would have never experienced the opportunity. I would have never learned this lesson. I would have never met these people. I would have never become the version of myself. That's the funny thing about a closed door. Most of them don't make sense while you're standing in front of them. They only make sense after you walk through the next one. Because sets and reps beat talent when talent doesn't do the reps. If you're new to the episode, I go by the name ED. For all you smart and intelligent folks out there, hey, listen, that just simply means Ed. Until next time.